Welcome aboard. On today's episode of Water Bodies, we thought this would be a good point to introduce you to the big picture of what we think might be possible here in False Creek. I'll be your anchor today, and I'm joined by Leona Brown and Zaida Schneider. Zaida is the president of the False Creek Friends Society, and Leona is one of our advisors. She's an Indigenous food sovereignty advocate and activist. So, stick around, because today we're diving into everything we can stand to learn from False Creek. Let's take the plunge. Thank you so much for being with us today. My name is Mendel. I'm the producer of this show, Water Bodies, and I'm really grateful to be joined by both of you, Zaida Schneider, Leona Brown. Leona, you are...
Gitxsan through my parents and Nisga'a through my grandparents. I've been here since 95, and my first child was born in 2004, and I have 3 kids now. Probably 2013 is about when I started what I call our healing journey of why we are here in this environment, in this space, and what is my path to do as work.
And tell me about the kind of work that you're doing.
It first started out just having like conversations around reconnection with other Indigenous peoples around residential schools and our upbringings, because the way we were brought up, many of us outside of the city live in like really isolated environments. So we thought like this was normal, that we were left home alone for days and abandoned. And we thought, everybody's parents behaved like this. And coming to the city and meeting other people and normal people, like we found like it's not normal to be brought up like that. And then when 2013 had come around, that's when I realized what residential school meant. Because by that time, both my parents were gone. And I had a clearer understanding from listening to others tell their story about their abuse and their upbringing, and just horrifying. But it opened me up, and I had so much forgiveness for my parents because I understood. Without knowing what they went through, I knew they went through something horrible. And the way they brought us up was the only way that they were taught. They were only taught abuse, neglect, and all that horrible behavior. So that's how they raised children. That's how that generation raised children. And I wanted to get back to my cultural side. And I really had this yearning of, what am I here for? I need to know more of myself. I need to know who I am, where I come from, and I want to share that with community, Indigenous people. I started advocating in the Indigenous dinner programs that we're in, that we wanted more, not just these little painting classes and they called Indigenous culture arts and craft at first. I'm like, I don't want arts and craft. I want like an elder come in and teach us something, anything, teach us how to pray, teach us how to smudge ourselves, and just simple little things. And it took a long time to start seeing that in our food programs. And so food was a big basis. And I always asked for like, why can't we have some Indigenous food here? And then understanding like the bigger world, we're restricted from our food. It's not that easy to get. And it was very difficult so food was a big thing. I think it's been a big thing through my whole life in the environment that we grew up in, because then with my sibling and me, there's 3 of us that we grew up in the environment where we're abandoned and left alone. There was no buying food. My parents would, get their money and they work and they get their paycheck and they disappear for a week or 2. and maybe get a loaf of bread or something. Like, I don't remember a whole lot of food. It's, like, empty. We didn't have food programs at schools. That's another thing I started advocating for in Vancouver here, because I felt it's important and that everybody be fed. So food has been a big part of who I am and, the path that I'm on, and I felt that, um, working with the Vancouver Urban Food Forest Foundation was a great way to, um, get community together to learn about our foods through plant medicine maybe, and I'm just learning along the way too, like plant medicines, what can we eat? Is it just all teas or can we eat some of it? Um, and along the way, it was just a big discovery of like food forests were actually part of our cultures. And I feel like the more I meet other people, the more I'm empowering myself in the words that I say. And I use people and organizations as tools to show like government things can happen. You can have programming like in school for food gardens because and you can't say like, "Oh, it would take too much to develop a program or somebody to teach it." And I'm like, "No, we got fresh roots here that do programming outside of like 3 different schools during the summer with older children or teenagers, and you just need to tap into that to have the food gardens outside the schools, right?" So I'm finding I'm being led to people who have system set up already that I can pull in and say like, "No, you know is not an excuse now because here's proof somebody's already doing it. We just need to uplift them and empower them to continue." Um, for example, the school board, I wanted to have food gardens and food forests as part of the curriculum in a way of decolonizing and reconciling with Indigenous people. So on my journey, I discovered, being invited to the various, research meetings that we have with the city and
Where you and I met.
yeah. So that, I discovered there's more. It's not just land. For some reason, I'm just thinking land, and I never thought about the water. Like, I've always thought about the water, like how much food restriction as Indigenous people we don't have already. That's like 80% of our food intake pre-colonization, and I felt like meeting you was a purpose. It was, "Okay, what do I do with this? How do I get around it?" And I'm like, "Okay," you mentioned the False Creek and wanting it to be a marine park, and I'm like, "Brilliant. Okay, that's how I can get my my hand in there to help advocate for that," because, again, it's another Indigenous topic and a way of reconciling, and bringing community together.
When we were walking here to the boat along the dock and I showed you all the northern anchovy, what did
Yeah.
you think?
I didn't know anchovies were here. I didn't know there was an abundance, but that tells me, there's a break in the system, um, because of the way we're set up here. We're a city. We're not out in the wild, but there's, like, little wildlife here that's thriving, but how do we make it how are we going to make it into a marine park to protect that food? But that food that's there, obviously, we can't eat because there's so many boats and a bit of pollution here, but it's there for other animals to feed.
And maybe someday we
Mhm.
can swim or our children or grandchildren can swim in it,
Yeah.
and they may be able to feed themselves too.
Yeah, and the biggest part of it is learning, educating about the system. Like, I'm an Indigenous person, I don't know much about the water, and I should know everything about the water. I should know everything about the creatures that come in here, and, like, the anchovies are here, I didn't know they were here. Okay, but who hunts for the anchovies? What kinda animals would hunt? What a beautiful educational class that would be for children. Like, right now, my son is with me today, and him looking at it, I'm sure he's gonna talk about it later about, "Whoa, that's a lot of anchovies." And he'll wonder, like, what other animals would come in and eat them besides you saying that the seagulls come in and they're big and fat now, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's just an amazing thing to I can envision the future being so fantastic with children.
Yeah, that's why we're here.
Yeah.
And I wanted to pause and reflect on False Creek, on this place that's both land and sea, because and I encourage everybody to do this at some point. Just search for Vancouver, simply Vancouver, and more than half of the images that come up feature False Creek prominently. It is the centerpiece of Vancouver, I think, in so many different ways. And I just wanted to put it to both of you. Like, what is the importance of this place? Why is this such a special part of the world and part of our community?
I think it's much more easy access to water space than, say, going out to Stanley Park or any waterfront area. This space is a little bit easier. It's calmer. We have all the boats here and stuff too, but still, it's much calmer here, and it's so quiet. And I feel like that might be a little bit. They may have developed it unintentionally, but intentionally, like it's meant to be a learning space, I feel, because from what I know from False Creek, it has been a part of Indigenous life for some time. And part of the community, 'cause I've read back on and looked at pictures of the various spaces of where beaches were and water spaces where people would come and just sit and play. And this is one of the areas, I believe, down that way. And they just disappeared. And the waterways was important to the Asian community, where they had lived on docks on that side towards Chinatown, and it was super amazing. So, like, to get that back and redevelop the area to encourage more wildlife, encourage more children to learn, and a community to come together and learn would be fantastic.
And yeah, access is right at the center of that, right?
Yeah.
Zaida, as the literal captain of this ship and the metaphorical captain of this ship as well, I was hoping, because we haven't quite overviewed it on the podcast yet, and picking up on what you just said, Leona, could you give us like a nickel stop tour of the history of False Creek?
Sure. Yeah, thank you. Well, for one thing, scientists would call False Creek a tidal slough, S-L-O-U-G-H. That's distinguished from what it kind of looks like, which is an estuary. Estuaries, though, need a lot of fresh water, and a river coming in here would create something of this shape. It's long and narrow and goes out into English Bay and then to the Salish Sea. But it's not. All the highest level of land here is very short, so there's no room to create rivers coming in. The Fraser River and Burrard Inlet both have big amounts of water coming in. But as a tidal slough, what this was really rich in was it was an incubator for life. We saw those anchovies coming in, small little fish, small little creatures, Dungeness crabs spawn here, herring. So it's like a maternity ward in a hospital. And it's a protected place that is the foundation, really, of marine life worldwide. And so the original, in my understanding, what I've been told, the original Indigenous people here probably for 8,000 years or more found this was like their grocery store. They could go out in the morning and get breakfast right in front of them. And, of course, we know the sad legacy of colonialization was it was also a fantastic place for exploitation of natural resources. And it became such an open sewer because there were slaughterhouses here, there were shipbuilding factories, there were sawmills. Can I use a swear word?
Sure, go ahead.
It became in the 30s known as Shit Creek because it smelled so bad. So that's just a quick précis of what I understand the history is. And there's been kind of this accidental kind of restoration of it. You can see it in the seawalls, and, it's got a park-like, surrounding. But nobody has thought of the water itself.
Yeah.
Nobody has thought about what that could mean, and as a connection to the majestic Salish Sea, we have an opportunity here to do something really magnificent.
I agree totally. And it's so funny being this sort of like postcard vision of Vancouver, and yet also kind of this void of imagination or this negative space of people's consciousness. I mean, in general, of the people who live here. I've heard it often called the toilet bowl of Vancouver. And it's like this reputation, comes from a particular moment in time, but we're not stuck there.
No, and
Yeah.
we saw it today. Those anchovies, obviously,
Mhm.
I mean, didn't it look like they had smiles on their face?
They were plopping out of the water. It
Yeah.
was so nice. They were happy.
Yeah.
They looked happy.
And, as a supremely food motivated person myself, I think, that is our deepest and most essential connection to our earth systems, right? The things that fuel us and we fuel in return. And, maybe fuel is the wrong word to use here, but that it's reciprocal, it's cyclical, and it is everything at the end of the day. Leona, I want to ask you about just to sketch some of the possibilities you see here for, in your dream of dreams. We don't have to worry about practicalities for the time being or timelines, but what would you love to see here from a food perspective, from a cultural perspective, from just how you'd like to spend time in False Creek?
My first thought is all the boats gone.
Hmm.
And change it to somewhere else so that this place can really thrive. But at the moment, like immediate envisioning would be, just seeing those anchovies sparked. Like you could bring a class down right now and go take a look at those anchovies and have a whole conversation about what are anchovies. You know how grossed out I was? I thought what they were on pizza. I've never had an anchovy on pizza because I was like, I don't know what that is. Gross.
I blame
Ugh.
cartoons.
Like
Yeah.
maybe there would be more acceptability with children and,
Mm.
and even people. Like this is what an anchovy looks like, and this is how like education, how big it grows, who eats it, it's edible to humans. How do you use it? What other animals? There's so much education just in that alone
Yeah.
that you could do right now. Go look at them again and just sit and have a conversation about it. That education can start now.
Mhm.
Of course, with the proper funding, and the education will just thrive and expand, and people will start being concerned about this environment and wanting to care for it and wanting to protect it even more. Especially, I don't want to be negative about gentrification, but this is what this is here
Sure.
from 2010, the Olympic buildings that went up in place of social housing and stuff. But all the new people here, regardless, don't know the environment very well. And what do you do here? What is available to go and look at nature? Because BC and Canada is very well known, especially Vancouver. It's being boasted all around the world of like how wonderful it is
And the
here.
greenest city.
Yeah, but if we sit and look, how much is being taken away. The city of Vancouver is slowly pulling those green spaces away, and we're having to fight for it even harder now. And having False Creek as a marine park, acknowledged through the city and the federal government, should provide that funding through Indigenous leadership, because there's so much funding out there for Indigenous leadership. But how do we get the government to say like, okay, without them wanting a specific agenda?
Mhm.
Like there's a big, I could do a whole TED talk on federal funding, how much money they have, but we can't access it because they have a specific agenda to do. And
Mhm.
I just heard that False Creek is, there's a big argument about a new school being built here. And the people who pride this place for themselves without children are fighting against it. They don't want another school here, but how wonderful another school would be here for the people here that already have struggles accessing the community as a whole, right? Then they have their school here, they come down to the water and learn as an outdoor classroom already.
What an incredible opportunity that would be to grow up right here.
Mm-hmm.
Leona, if you were, I'd just like to hear your thoughts about what an indigenized False Creek might look like and what might happen with Indigenous stewardship.
That would be a long process. As we were talking about earlier, is passion and people to succeed you, and people who would thrive in this. They're very few and far between. We'd have to work really hard to get that Indigenous leadership, but sustain the leadership that's here, and probably it would open up to, you know, shadow training younger youth to be able to take over similar jobs in Indigenous leadership. Indigenous leadership is not just one thing. It's a whole lot of things, but we don't have enough people to do that. But if we did have enough people to do that and the resources to do what we needed to do, it would be slow and very long to begin, but it would start with one thing at a time. It's like, while these boats are here, let's like get these little classes and connecting with the youth to decolonize children in the schools and the people in the community to gather and have that funding to gather them. Because one important thing is, we're talking about food sovereignty and my food forest stuff and the food and the water, is that you need to have food to bring community together too. You need to be able to feed people and allow them to bring extra home too, especially in a cost of living era right now. But it would be slow. It would be trying to get that leadership and training youth. I would imagine we need to have a longhouse somewhere along the way, probably a connection to Science World to add to funding. I think it would be a beautiful place. I see like little boat tours around, and it's sooner or later developing, like, even if we can't eat the crabs, let's capture them. So kids know, like, this is the food Indigenous people ate. Like, we could still eat it if we're in a clear space, but all of that explanation would be amazing with children. Even my own kids, like my kids are Indigenous, but they don't really know how to capture a crab. I've taught them how to clean a fish, but I haven't taught them how to go fish for a fish yet, and how that's important to feeding yourself through the year, or digging for clams or harvesting seaweed. Those are very important foods for us that we can't do in the city. But I mean, even in this space, you can develop those things with the restriction of not being able to eat it though right now,
Yeah.
because of the pollution that's in this space. But what an amazing thing that the possibilities are there, but they're not really possibilities. You can do them. They can be done.
I agree totally. And I think there's something to like building for the future, knowing that, like, as you say, it's a grounds for practice. It's a grounds for sort of cultural transmission. I wonder, what could False Creek look like if we had clam gardens, even if we didn't eat from them, even if they were simply, for the clams, for the wildlife, for our, intergenerational education. I think that'd be an incredible thing.
Yeah, it's great learning, and a reconnection for Indigenous children and adults. Because all my life, I never knew. I knew seaweed came from like the water somewhere. I didn't know where or how people did it. I saw on TikTok once somebody went out to like an island space, and they're like, "Oh, here's a patch of seaweed," and it was on rocks, and I'm like, "You just picked them off the rocks?" And I didn't know that.
So
Like,
you can see along the shoreline here, that's called fucus.
Bladderwrack.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bladderwrack.
Yeah.
And it is edible.
Yeah.
It is.
So I didn't know that all this time. I know that they sun dry it and they have to clean it and stuff, but I never knew where do you get it from?
Yeah.
How do you identify it, right? And I just saw it on like this one TikTok. This lady was doing a little series in BC of harvesting her seaweed, and I'm like, wow. I even like commented, "Thank you so much. I never knew where that came from."
You mentioned digging for crabs, and it's really interesting because we have a potential project with Nature Vancouver to create artificial reefs for clams, oysters, mussels. And what's really interesting is how nature can rehabilitate itself. So, for example, every little blue mussel, everybody knows what a little blue mussel looks like. Every adult blue mussel filters 10 liters of seawater a day and abstracts out of it the toxins. So one thing that's being tried in urban areas all around the world right now is putting in these what are called filter feeder reefs, artificial reefs, because on their own, they will clean up the water.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one opportunity. We may not be able to eat those because they've abstracted all the pollution out of it. But at someday, natural critters may be the ones who actually clean up False Creek, of course, with
Yeah.
human help.
Yeah. It's knowing what the ecosystem was before or is out there to bring it in here. And it would take some time to eventually come to a point where it would be a marine farm, a marine food forest that we know clearly we're not thinking like this space is going to feed everybody, but it'll give opportunity for especially non-Indigenous people that don't have access to that food to, one day we'll be able to sample it from here and be able to identify this is how it grows. Like the seaweed. I'll go back to the seaweed again. I never knew it grew on rocks. I thought it was like underwater and like you had to dive for it or something, and it's just on rocks.
Yeah.
But we know we have to carve these paths now, and we have to convince the government to support this funding.
We know the right direction to be going.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be right back after this message from one of our environmental allies.
Hi, I'm Maya from the Small Planet Heroes podcast. For each episode, we discuss what it takes to face today's systemic sustainability challenges with some of the most influential voices in Canada on the environment. Join us in conversations focused on pressing topics like Indigenous land governance, creating climate optimism, and more. Small Planet Heroes is produced by Crewsphere, a project out of the University of British Columbia's Vancouver campus. Find us at Small Planet Heroes wherever you get your podcasts, and to find us on Instagram at Small Planet Heroes to stay in touch.
I want to pick up on, learning from the past, especially because from stories of this place, we know that the relationship with this waterway was very deep, and that there was an understanding of the water itself that is so different, so altered in its state today. And I'm thinking, of course, of how, the water didn't just stop at a hard line the way it does now at Science World, that it would move tidally into the False Creek Flats, as it's known, and even connect with Burrard Inlet across Campbell Avenue, which is just, it's almost like a legend now, right? Like it's not a reality. I think it's so important, falling in love with food, falling in love with the water itself. Like this is a theme that comes up again and again on this podcast, which is that what we protect, what we uplift are the things that we spend time with, that we know deeply, that we fall in love with. And that connects to our sort of canned question for every episode, for every guest, which is, what is your water body? The theory being that everybody has some water body that in their present moment, in their childhood, that they're connected to. It could be small, it could be an ocean, it could be anything. And that says something about who they are and where they're at or where they come from. So over to you. What is your water body?
My water body that I grew up with is in Prince Rupert, the ocean. So while we're going through, my brother and I going through this abandonment with my parents, I was placed with my cousin. She's older, so I call her my aunt, in Prince Rupert, and she lived on a house that had stilts, so the tide would come under her house. That was always fascinating to me, but when the tide would go down, it opens up this world that we would just disappear into. We would look for those little clam or thingies that look like Chinese hats. We just called them
Periwinkles.
We just called them China hats, and we would look for those and try to find the biggest one. We would look for crabs and be curious about little things jumping, and that was my place. I every time I tried to want to calm myself if things are feeling overwhelming, that's what I envision is myself on the beach of rocks looking for things and just being with the waterway and calm.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that I feel that's here because it's so quiet. This space, even though the walkway is connected to Stanley Park, it's completely different from it is over there. It's a completely different environment, and it could nurture learning workshops here.
I mean, oh my God, to this day, tide pooling is one of my favorite activities. And it's exactly like you say, from 100 meters to the next, you find a completely different, well, for starters, just a different geology, and then a different assemblage of animals and water conditions. And you just, every tiny little pool is a window into another world. And literally every time I go out, I see something I've never seen before. And I would love to see that here, all the little microclimates that could
It would be
develop.
spectacular
Yeah.
because it's another way to kind of decolonize, because we shouldn't have to go to the aquatic center to go and see starfish. My daughter went the other day and she saw the sea lions and otters and stuff. But I'm like, you can access it here. Like
Yeah.
if we create that environment for these animals to come in and sit on a rock, like how amazing that would be for kids to see in its own nature,
Mm-hmm.
not in a box.
We have this idea of False Creek as a glassless aquarium. We've put down underwater cameras and underwater drones, and it's just amazing what is happening down there. It is alive, and yet so far we're confined just to looking at it. As you said before, it's a pretty spot. It's been gentrified, but we have not been able to really immerse ourselves in the wonders of what it is and what it could be.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I just want to jump back to the indigenization of False Creek, because something that's really deeply inspiring for me is seeing these guardian programs that are popping up all over the world. I was hoping the two of you could unpack that concept a little bit and maybe explore what it, all the various ways that could exist here. Because it's like you say, in terms of Indigenous leadership, it's not necessarily just one thing. It's a whole palette of different possibilities. So yeah, what does Indigenous guardianship mean to both of you?
For me, I think it goes along with stewardship, and I think that's one program that we could use in the cities, in the bigger cities, to teach and get that funding for Indigenous people to go out further to see the wildlife, go see the killer whales. But if we have them in this space and help transform and support the environment to be transformed, so all of us in the city don't have to go out, don't have to have a boat to go way out there to look at the.
Don't have to be rich enough to own a boat to go out
and
there.
See true nature. It'll come in here, and I feel like I've seen killer whales. I don't know if it actually happened, but like in my vision and my memories, I'm thinking killer whales will come in here if we have the place for herring to spawn. And how amazing that would be, because people go ballistic when they see it in Burrard Inlet, when they know they're coming in, and you know how difficult that is for them to come in.
Yeah.
Because of the big boats, right? And the traffic that's happening over there. It's amazing that they could come in over there right now.
Yeah, what an experience seeing orca. I was reminded recently that they did come in here on a couple of occasions briefly, but it was a real headline item. What if it was just a daily occurrence?
Yeah, because they got to come in and feed, and we have lots of anchovies. Come in.
Yeah.
We got to put it on
Enjoy
Uber.
yourselves.
Come on in. The eating is good here.
Yeah.
Yeah, Zaida, anything to add to that?
This has been a really important and difficult part of our work. We know that without Indigenous co-governance involvement, and Leona's talking about a marine park, it'll never happen.
No, it will happen.
It will.
You can't be negative about what you
what
envision.
I mean to say, without Indigenous involvement, it won't happen. That is really clear to us. And there are some models that we have explored. We've reached out to all the host nations and said, we'd love to support your conservation goals, your own goals. We'd love to find out what we can do to help your stewardship.
Yeah.
But it's been very difficult. We're a small little organization, and, Indigenous governments are overwhelmed with requests for participation right now. We're so lucky, Leona, that you've joined our advisory team. It's been, for me, this has been one of the most significant things that has happened. There are models. There is this international concept called Indigenous Conserved and Protected Areas, ICPAs. And now there's an idea of an urban Indigenous Conserved and Protected Area that is actually a homegrown Canadian concept. So there are varieties of ways in which that Indigenous participation could help solve this terrible situation where we have an overlapping of 21 government agencies who are responsible for parts of False Creek, but there's not one, bureau or agency or council that can do future planning. And so that's one thing that we know needs to happen. And, if there are Indigenous counselors, chiefs, we'd love to talk to you. And, maybe we can find a way together to, really realize some of Leona's visions for the future.
Mm-hmm.
People don't realize that the three nations here are so small in capacity and staffing that, if they had the proper funding to be able to staff themselves as a big corporation, they would be able to do the things that they want to do. But they're overwhelmed.
They are
and
overwhelmed.
we in the community with False Creek Friends and everybody else doing different projects, again, it's making people come to like a coalition type of thing and supporting each other in a way to like send the message to government. And the city is like, they look at one organization, they're like, oh, they're just tiny. But if they see that you're part of something bigger, a bigger community, then they have to like pay attention in some way, right? Change will happen when we gather. As much as we're going to stand here with our one sign and we want our water park, we need like 10 or more people to come start standing with us. And then the community be like, what are you guys doing? And then we can share and explain. And then all of a sudden we have a whole community standing with us, wanting to see a marine park here for their children that are here.
Yeah. An ocean is made of many drops, after all.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome everybody and anybody to come aboard, be part of this mission. Now, Leona, you ran for mayor of Vancouver.
Yes.
If you were mayor of False Creek, what would be your first order of business?
It would be ungentrifying the boat system. And I know that's a scary idea to a lot of non-Indigenous people, is the land back theory. It's not in the sense of people thinking I'm going to kick you out because I want land back. I want to steward the lands and help steward together to decolonize. That's how you decolonize. You invite your neighbors in and say, this is why it's important to me, because this was our food system. So let's look at the food system here and learn together and care about the food that's around us. It's not just a boat parking place.
Yeah.
There's things happening here right now.
And this may be too deep of a conversation for this one episode, because I know the boat issue is a thorny one because it's an issue of class kind of on both ends. You have extraordinarily wealthy people who use the space with their boats, and you also have people who, for many, this is a sort of housing of last resort. I think we're still looking for exactly how to navigate that with care for everybody and the environment in kind of equal measure. Zaida, I don't know if you wanted to say more about that.
Well, I just, there is this notion, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but the Haudenosaunee kind of concept. Haudenosaunee, about things take time.
Mm-hmm.
Things can take generations. We should, but hold in our hearts a regard for the seventh generation. And if we make the right decisions here and now, I know that 7 generations from now, people will be thanking their ancestors for the work that we've done now. So it takes patience. And like you say, it takes bringing people together. But it's an incremental process, I believe. So we don't want to get too impatient and maybe scare people away, saying we're going to evict you out of here. All you rich people with your boats, get out. We're taking over. But I do think that in alliance with this idea of land back, there's also a concept that I think is very powerful, which is water back. And it's not just for one class of people. It really has to be deeply democratic. And that is our vision, that at some point, people, humans and more than humans, will be able to enjoy our incremental little steps that we're taking right now.
Well, at the risk of turning this too much into a bummer, I did want to talk about the long list of present day challenges that we face here. Um, as you say, Zaida, that when there's 21 different government agencies in charge, no one's in charge.
No one's in charge.
We have pernicious issues surrounding the sort of the age of the worst industrialization in False Creek and the pollution that's in the seabed, and pollution to this day, right? Both in the form of combined sewer overflows and things coming off the streets. There's a lot to deal with here. It's a place of incredible potential and a place of really concentrated challenge. What maybe could you highlight for me what you think are the deepest challenges and potentially the greatest opportunities here?
Really, the administrative overlap is an enormous challenge. And that means, for example, that if you really wanted to do some of the expensive work that would need to be done, like getting rid of the heavy metals, or encapsulating them that are on the bottom, that needs a big public investment. But because nobody is in charge, you can't really, sit some government down. We don't have, a king of Canada, unlike other countries, maybe to the south of us. So that is a major impediment right now, is that there's nobody to start the planning process. So one of the things that one of my ideas is that, there is False Creek Friends. We're promoting this idea of some kind of a park-like future for False Creek. But it really requires a much broader, whole of community to do this. And that is really hard. One of the other major obstacles is this idea of eco-grief. A lot of young people feel there's no future for them. If they feel there's no future, we're being robbed of their energy. So that energy sink is as pernicious and poisonous as the pollution that's still in the water. So those are the two major problems. As a community or as a society, we haven't figured out how to really deal equitably with the environment. And then as a social organization, and with our history and with social media and AI, we're beginning to feel isolated from it. So we've lost this sense of kinship. We need those other models to help us dig ourselves out of these two major deficits.
Yeah.
You really need the whole community to be involved in supporting the envisioning of what it could look like and what it can be and what it will be. Even the boat owners need to be part of that conversation. The businesses around here need to be part of that conversation as much as the residents need to be part of it, because it'll benefit the future.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo that because it's so blisteringly obvious to me that what we're in currently, so many of these problems we face, is part of this vicious cycle of greed and extraction and pollution and division and mental health issues and physical health issues. And the alternative, as we're talking about ways that something like this could be funded, is a virtuous cycle where we feed back into the system that feeds us literally, spiritually, psychically. That is a space for us to enjoy culture and sport and activity and learn and raise generations. Like we have these two completely orthogonal paths, and one is just the obvious choice to me. We'll just remember that at the core of this thing, humans are not apart from nature. We are a part of nature, and that sustaining this place will mean being sustained by this place. So thank you, Leona Brown, for joining us. Thank you, Zaida. If you're interested in learning more about the False Creek Friends, you can visit us at falsecreekfriends.org and join our newsletter to learn lots more and get involved. Find more from Water Bodies wherever you get podcasts, on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. We'll see you soon. Water Bodies is a production of the False Creek Friends Society. Please help spread the word and get involved. False Creek could use your help. Subscribe to our newsletter at falsecreekfriends.org for the latest news and volunteer opportunities. And what do you want to see in False Creek? You can leave us a comment. Water Bodies is a video podcast on YouTube and Spotify and an audio podcast everywhere else. We'll see you next time.